Welcome to Talking New York Real Estate with Vince Rocco. Our show is all about the exciting world of real estate and in particular, how it relates to the luxury New York marketplace. But if you are not planning a real estate transaction in New York, we still have plenty of information you can use no matter where you are. Now, here's our show. Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Vince Rocco in New York, so let's get right to what everyone is talking about. Today on the show, your inside look at New York City real estate. As summer winds down and as we head into the fall market, the question on everybody's mind is, what's next? Fall has traditionally been one of the busiest seasons in the city when buyers and sellers come back from summer mode, new listings hit the market, and serious deal-making gets underway. But with interest rates, inventory levels, and buyers' confidence all in flux, this fall feels anything but predictable. In today's market update, we'll break down where demand is strongest, what's happening with pricing across Manhattan, Brooklyn, and beyond, and how buyers and sellers can position themselves to win in this shifting landscape. The fall market is here, so let's dive in. And on set with me today is Greg Heim, the infamous Greg Heim, chief economist here at Brown Harris Stevens and the host of the very popular podcast Crossing the Line, and Tracy Hammersley from Douglas Elliman, a great friend of mine as well. And they join me now to discuss, but first, let me welcome my listeners and viewers from across the United States and all around the globe. This is Talking New York Real Estate, so let's go behind the headlines and inside real estate, the state of our industry.
Hi, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. Listening to Vince Rocco, you know the right partner makes all the difference. At Roadway, we deliver an experience your clients will love. For specialized services and white glove care, choose Roadway. Want to learn more? Email me at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
All right, good morning, everybody. We are back. So we're talking to two big experts here as I introduced them at the top of the show.
When do they come in the room?
Well, whenever. But we're going to talk about the marketplace, how we're going to end the summertime, how we're going to start the fall. We used to have very defined seasons.
For
and
sure.
The fall season used to be the hottest season, a lot of listings, a lot of customers coming back from vacation. Crazy, crazy, crazy from September right through to almost Thanksgiving and Christmas. That has changed many years ago, and now the market kind of has split and has populated throughout the year. We have busy times, not so busy times, whatever. But this year in particular, because we've suffered from a lot of different pressures, interest rates.
We have suffered, Vince. We have suffered.
I want to kind of get a flavor from these two, where we are right now today in August of 2025, and where we think we're going to go moving forward. So I'd like to start with my friend here, Greg, who is the chief economist here at Brown Harris Stevens, has all the numbers and has a good explanation for it. Greg, give us a little bit of where we are today numbers-wise. The housing market is still the biggest contributor, generally speaking, to inflation, to our economy. So explain for our audience what it really means from an inflation perspective and how the housing market might be struggling a bit and what we can do about it.
Well, all housing's local, so it's hard to slap a generic term on all of it. But, housing's obviously everybody has to live somewhere. And the inflation numbers we've seen, in the BLS's press release when the Consumer Price Index comes out, it always says that housing accounted for more than half of the monthly increase because a lot of that has to do with the way they measure it. They measure housing inflation in 6-month increments. So they'll call up Tracy and say, what are you paying for rent? Or how much would you rent your home for? And then they check back 6 months later. So there's always this lag time that goes with it. I think, here in New York, it's a different experience, even among the boroughs. Manhattan has had higher levels of inventory, which kept prices from really moving the last 5 years. You had COVID, we shut down, we couldn't show property, prices didn't go down significantly. Then we had 21 into the first half of 22, never seen anything like
Crazy.
it, prices didn't go up. Now things are trending down a bit. It's not that we have ridiculously high levels of inventory, but much higher than most other places. In some of the other boroughs like Brooklyn, very low levels of inventory, parts of Queens. So I think it's challenging because it's funny, everybody says, well, rates are still high. Technically, that's not true. Even at 6.5 or 6.6 or 6 3/4, that's still 1% lower than the average mortgage rate over the last 50 years. But
Is that right? That's the stat. Okay.
Yeah, I always throw it out there.
Wow.
It is.
You got to meet my friend Fred. Fred is a online site run by a Federal Reserve Bank where you can put in basically any economic indicator and get charts like that. It's good for a real estate agent to educate a buyer.
Fred.com?
No, just Google Fred.
Okay.
It'll come up, I guarantee you. I used to write my blog, my friend Fred, and then I'd say, no, not Fred Peters. Fred.
There you go.
But we do love you, Fred Peters, because we know you're listening.
And, people get discouraged. Even when rates start to come down, then people get a little greedy and say, well, I'm going to wait till they get under 6. I'm waiting for 5. And you can dictate it. That's like me telling you, Tracy, I'm going to pay this much for this house.
Right.
And you're like, no.
Good luck with that. It's good to want things.
No, you're not. The market's going to determine that. So the big question is, when are rates going to come down? Well, that's an easy answer. That's when inflation expectations go down. And this battle to get inflation to the 2% target has kind of stalled out a bit. And a lot of that has to do with housing, because while price growth has kind of flattened in most areas of the U.S., we still haven't seen any declines. And rents are still going up in most parts of the country as well. We're short about 4 to 5 million homes in this country, depending on who you ask.
Okay.
So, and obviously building affordable housing here in New York is a chronic problem. So I think that, for buyers out there, it's the double whammy. They have rates higher than they would like and prices higher than they would like.
Correct.
But as my buddy Scott Nadler likes to say,
love Scotty Nadler.
Look at the payment. Don't get laser focused. Yes. Loan daddy. Don't get focused on the rate. Even 25 basis points may not mean that much. So I think it all is, what you two have to do is inform buyers. You want them to make an informed decision so they understand everything and what they're paying and what the risks of that are. And I think that we are seeing a shift towards a more neutral market from a national standpoint. Here in Manhattan, it's been essentially neutral for a while now.
But I wrote a piece last night for Substack, okay, and where I talked a little bit about interest rates. And you're right, they're about between 6.5%, 6.8%.
You can get 5.5 with relationship pricing, depending on the product.
Plus also 15-year adjustable is
Yep.
also down in that range. But the point is, though, when interest rates get lowered, if they do, what that tends to do is increase the prices of homes nationally and also here in New York. So really, where is the rub there?
Well, the logic with that is that if rates were to come down, you would see a whole bunch of buyers jump in, which would, nationally inventory is up significantly year over year.
Right.
And, that you would think that would push prices down. It hasn't happened yet until but what happens is the rates go lower, people start buying the homes, inventory goes down, prices go back up. And the one thing you can't change about your purchase is the price of the home.
Right.
You can change your rate, right? So I think, and the whole inflation thing, I know it's confusing to people because everybody's like, well, why won't the Fed lower mortgage rates? And you go, well, because the Fed doesn't lower mortgage rates.
But don't we think they will September 17th? That seems to be what all indicators are pointing to now.
What they're going to lower is something called the federal funds rate.
Right.
Well, I was going to say.
And I'll try not to put the audience to sleep with this.
Yeah. No, but it's important, though, because a lot of people think that because the rates come down by the Fed, that
automatically that translates to you.
Not necessarily true.
Back in the old days, before the financial crisis, banks used to have to lend each other money overnight to meet reserve requirements. Right. My brother used to do this for a living.
Oh, cool.
And they would, call up another bank and say, we need this much, okay. And then it was an overnight. We paid it back the next day, and then they saw where they were. After that, after the financial crisis, now we have what we call an abundant reserve. The Fed actually pays interest for banks to hold money. So this is an unnecessary rate to even think about, but it's basically the gas pedal of the brake on the economy.
Sure.
Right now, inflation is still, whatever metric you look at, all these 3-letter things, CPI, PPI, PCE, all that stuff.
I love it when you talk acronyms, Greg.
Well, if I said them all by full name, it would take too long. But, you're not at 2%. But their argument is it's the old horseshoe and hand grenade thing. It's just got to be close.
Can I ask you why 2% is that magic?
They just kind of, where'd we get 6 feet during COVID? They just kind of pulled it out. Oh, okay. I think, you look at long-term trends and you say,
right.
The problem is the Fed has 2 mandates that are in conflict with each other sometimes. One is price stability, keeping inflation at bay. The other one is maximizing employment. if you want to maximize employment, you should want to have rates as low as possible so companies can borrow at cheaper amounts. But that would lead to inflation. So you see that it's not always in the same interest. But what they do with this rate is it's more like sending a message. But the only rates that are directly affected are short-term rates, credit cards, auto loans.
Right.
Now, remember, the Fed cut rates 1% last year. Mm-hmm. Did your credit card rate go down 1%? No, it did not. Are auto loans 1% cheaper than they were? No. Yeah, so there's not even a direct relationship there. What usually happens is when they're cutting rates, it usually means the economy is weakening, which by itself is enough to bring long-term rates down.
Sure.
Because if you're not expecting a roaring economy, you're not expecting high levels of inflation down the road, you're not going to ask for that much of a premium. Obviously, if I'm going to lend Tracy money, the longer she wants it for, I'm going to charge her a higher rate. There's more risk, right? There's interest rate risk. So to try to sum up, in a very cryptic way last week in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, of all places, the chairman of the Fed basically said, yeah, we know that rates are probably a little higher than they need to be. And we're considering, the shift that's going on now in labor. So they are going to cut in September.
It's indisputable, right? The jobs market report was lower than expected.
We just had the worst 3 months of job growth since the pandemic.
So that's why people are now saying for a while, saying, no, we probably won't see any rate cuts until 2026 now after the September 17th meeting. It seems pretty imminent.
Correct.
I think that had the data been more accurate for June and July when they came out.
Okay.
May and June, then they would have cut in July, I think. But there's also
why wasn't the data accurate? That's unsettling.
I used to work for the BLS.
Of course you did. There too?
I used to work for two organizations that get besmirched a lot. But the BLS.
What's the common denominator?
Me?
When I used to work
but not when I was there. No, look,
since you left, it went all downhill.
I think with BLS, you're trying to gauge a country of a couple 100 million people by sampling a very small percentage of them, many of whom don't respond to, companies will
There's
ignore.
There's a very easy fix to that. Change the survey sample.
Well, the problem is, because when I worked for BLS, it's this whole idea of cooperation. Like, it's a voluntary survey.
Okay.
You can tell me to go wherever you'd like to tell me to go.
Right.
And there's no penalty for it. They have to make estimations. You talked about how the seasonality of our market has changed. They have to deal with issues like that as well. Mm-hmm. And, COVID threw everybody for a loop. So sometimes they make big revisions. Look, I write market reports. Sometimes every market report I do, I revise all the prior data. Sometimes those revisions are big. So I think that there's a concern, is that data accurate? The Commissioner of Labor Statistics lost her job over this.
Okay.
Wow. I think that they need to look and try to do the best they can. In this day of AI and other tools, there has to be better ways to do it. But had they known, the data looked great before it was revised, when they issued the July report. We'll see what happens when August report comes out.
Okay.
But we have not seen a huge climb in unemployment claims. People are spending longer on unemployment, but they're not filing for it at an alarming rate yet.
Interesting.
So, I think that we want the economy to cool a little bit so we can get inflation lower and then we get the lower rates. But there is one easy way to get mortgage rates down that hopefully will happen soon. And that is taking the tariff revenue that has come in, over $150 billion so far. Even S&P, when they did their ratings on our creditworthiness, said that tariff revenue should cancel out any expenditures from the tax bill and spending bill that was passed. But
is that tariff revenue earmarked specifically for this, or is that still in question?
The Treasury Secretary said that they're going to take the tariff revenue and pay down the debt.
Okay.
Paying down our debt would lower the interest rate we would have to pay on our debt, which the 10-year, obviously very tied to mortgage rates, would be very good for the housing market.
Well, I was going to ask you that before we move on. While tariffs have led to price increases for some goods, they have yet to cause widespread inflation.
And they won't cause widespread
inflation. And explain that.
The definition of inflation is too much money
Because
chasing.
that's what everybody's thinking.
Right. Yeah.
Too
You're
much
not
money
hearing this from a lot of
chasing-
people. It's so interesting.
Correct.
It's like tariffs, the devil. But
Right. The elephant.
Well,
in
you're the
room.
one wearing red.
yes, it's my power color.
I'm
Don't
saying-
bring anything else into it.
See, I'm the cold one. Yeah.
I wasn't talking fashion today, but okay, there we go.
You can just say how beautiful it is.
It's,
Yeah, gorgeous.
it's
Thank you, Doc.
too much money chasing too few goods. The reason we got into trouble after the pandemic is we increased the money supply by 40%.
Okay.
That's never happened before in the history of this. Yeah, we just basically sent, in the financial crisis,
Devalue.
we gave the money to the banks to lend, and they didn't
Right.
really lend it to a lot of people because not a lot of people looking for it. Here, we just sent everybody checks. And at the same time, we had a supply shortage. So
Right.
we had this bad inflation,
Manufacturing shortage,
which
yeah.
they told us would be transitory. They don't know what they're talking about.
We're
So
still dealing with that.
well, and we're still paying the price for that. But
I think we always will do that.
if I don't get a raise, God forbid,
Don't you have a say in that?
I don't have more money to spend. No, let's say I'm not making any more money right now than I was a couple
Raise?
months ago. So
Sure.
if I have to spend more on clothes or cars or whatever the tariff goods are,
Same income.
I'm going to spend less on other things.
Sure.
And it's interesting. Last month in the CPI report, the prices, when you think about stuff we import, you think clothes, right? Because that's such a huge part. And the price of
Car
apparel
parts,
just went up
electronics.
0.1%.
Okay.
So we haven't seen a huge, significant broad base. It's not everything that's being tariffed. Remember that there's three things that can happen with a tariff. They can pass it all through to the customers.
Consumer, sure.
They can eat some of it.
Sure.
Or if the dollar strengthens, it
kinda
becomes
evens out.
cheaper.
Yeah.
So this idea that, that we're all going to be paying 15% more for everything we get is nonsense.
Sure.
Well, that's sort of what I was getting at. Anyway, how quickly commercial breaks come up. We have to take one. But when we come back, we're going to talk more about real estate market trends, conditions, what about this and what about that. Talking New York Real Estate is just getting underway on this very busy and beautiful Tuesday morning. We will be right back.
The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
All right, Tracy, let me ask you. So I mentioned at the top of the show, the fall market isn't what it used to be.
Sure.
Seasonally. How did it typically differ from summer, spring, and winter
Sure.
in the old days?
And just
when we first started.
Before I get to, yes, many, many, many decades ago. Right?
I wasn't going to say it. I wasn't going to say it. I was
And Greg, here I was going to start off by thanking you for your insight and wisdom because I don't feel that information is being widely circulated in the media. So it was really interesting to hear these drier topics put to life in a relatable way. Thank you.
In English.
We try to do it a funny way, too, when we can.
No. I really, I'm
Listen
learning.
to
So
Crossing
thank
the
you.
Line, and you'll get all the data you need.
There it is. Boom. Vince, to answer your question, yes, it's so interesting because it used to be, it was very, very seasonal. You have the spring market, from mid to end of January to Memorial Day weekend. Then if we're talking sales, super slow, dead summer. And then after Labor Day, personally, this is still true that, like I have always done, I am waiting to list several exciting properties September 2nd or that week right after Labor Day. Which again, I still can't believe is this coming weekend. And then we really have until Thanksgiving. And then I've always said, no matter how strong a market, if it's a ridiculous seller's market back in the day of 2.5% interest rates, et cetera, that, anyone looking for a bargain, if you could come in the summer months or in December and someone really needed to make a deal, you could get a lot more flexibility as a buyer. And I think that is still true. But, Wheezy has said several times that she has seen summer for the past few years been very, very busy. And we have as well. It's been an inexplicably busy August. So still doing the same thing, waiting to launch a lot of properties come in the coming weeks. And I think that is true across the board. I think we are going to see more inventory coming in.
Well, that was my next question. Do you see an increase in listings coming up this fall?
100%.
Compared to last fall and the year before?
Yes.
As our summer currently is ending?
Yes.
You do?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
I think that we're going to have, and I think actually I'm very optimistic. I think we're poised for a busy fall. Look, here's the thing. I know it's been a tough year. Someone quoted me a statistic. I'm also a licensed Florida broker and do business in South Florida for over 20 years now, which is kind of crazy. that there's some statistic going around, which I'm always a little skeptical of statistics, but even allowing
Wait a minute.
Well, you can slice and dice the numbers to support your POV, of course, but there was some stat going that like some 67% of realtors in Florida had not done a single transaction as of this point in time in the year 2025, which is crazy. Now, every other person, at least in South Florida, has a real estate license. It's about one of every 10.
Yeah,
here
and
in
like
New
some
York.
areas like
So
Palm
that's
Beach,
different.
you have more brokers than properties.
Exactly right.
So,
You're 100% right. So that's not completely shocking. I don't think it's that high in New York, but it's been, by all accounts, a very interesting. There have been a lot of struggles for people. It's been a challenging market. This is where being in the industry for 22 plus years, and you're 30 years? How long are you? No. Excuse
23.
me. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Oh, I knew you were more than I. Okay.
Yeah.
But that so I'm sure you're seeing. Like, thankfully, our team.
23. Wait, am I in this industry longer than both of you?
Yes.
Yes, you're the patriarch. Well,
30 years.
Why is that such a shock?
Somebody has to be the older
I'm the
one.
young kid here.
Really?
No, I'm just, the young kid who just dropped his kid off at college. So
Congratulations on both. But, that's where being in the business for so long and having the relationships, we have stayed very busy. Real life is still happening despite whatever's going in the market. People
Well,
are
that's the
still.
thing. Real life still happens.
People are still having kids graduate. They're downsizing. They're getting their,
Correct.
their empty nesters home. They are getting job transfers. They're getting laid off. They're having more kids. Like, life is happening. So with that, because of our relationships, our team has been very busy thanks to our, repeat referral business.
And it's always about relationships. But based on what Tracy just said and what you said a moment ago, life keeps moving. We all know that. You got to upgrade, you got to downgrade, you got to you move for job
And
transfer.
there's always something to be worried about. Like, people always say, we want certainty. When have we ever had
there's-
certainty?
life is uncertain.
We've
Come on, if you're
never
holding
had
out for that.
Uncertainty breeds opportunity. And that was the one thing I kept telling people.
Nice.
Like, you're in a situation now where so many people are afraid to get into the market.
Sure.
Here in New York City, we don't know who the next mayor is going to be. That creates uncertainty.
Yes.
Correct.
They're worried about tariffs and inflation because that's
Right.
all they heard. What's going to happen with this and that? It is a lot going on.
Yes.
But I always say, you want to know the ultimate mood indicator, look at the stock market.
Okay.
Jerome Powell has this cryptic speech, and the Dow goes up 840-something points that day
It's so
because they love
volatile.
what he said.
I just say, but is that so super trustworthy? I don't know.
Well, look,
Well, it's not.
It's a
It's
fine
not.
game that they're playing because it's like, I can't come out and say you're getting rate cuts in September because let's say the August jobs report comes out and it's a blowaway number and the prior 2 months are revised upward big time.
Fair.
Then they're going to be like,
I
whoa,
think we all know that's probably not happening, but I take your point.
probably not happening. Or you never know. I mean, we've seen so many things go on that we weren't expecting. That it's.
But that seasonality is like, people are not usually adding to their rosters here in the end of August. They're excited for the wind down of summer, the start of school. Like, after Labor Day, we will see some more
But
things.
I still have to say, based on the interest rate talk we had a few minutes ago, we're at 6.5, 6.8, which, typically or historically is not bad rate.
Sure.
It's
Okay, they're great rates.
better than the average.
But when
yeah.
you look at the post-COVID numbers of 3.9, 4.2, 4.4, there are still people, even based on our relationships with our sellers, who say, yes, I need to downgrade. Yes, I need to upgrade.
But they don't want to let go of the rate.
But I don't
Like,
want to
they're
let go
right,
of this rate
exactly.
because now
But they're locked in for 30 years
double-
if they were smarter than my sister and me.
Well, no, but the point is, but then I'm going to double my monthlies, which we all know monthlies, as I talked about on the show for weeks and weeks. Common charges
tough.
have gone up, taxes have gone up. Now,
Assessments are rampant. Yes, it's
Assessments
a lot.
are rampant.
It's a lot.
So I get the seasonality or the need to want to move on, and people start focusing after a summer month. But how do you reconcile that? Because numbers are numbers, Greg. I mean, no
I
matter
think
how you look at it.
if you're a
numbers are numbers.
buyer, you've got to remember this is a long-term investment. You can't.
Well, I agree
and I
with that.
point out all the time. I bought my home in Long Island in 2006. The worst time for an economist to
Right.
buy a
Yeah,
home.
right. Super peak.
I've raised my son there. I'm my rate is less than half of what it was when I bought.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I bought it was like 6.5.
How's the value, though, would you say, compared to 2006?
It's insane.
You've increased, right?
The
a
value,
big time. Long Island.
The suburbs.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Long Island has nothing to sell. I mean, Long Island, Westchester.
Yeah.
Do you get solicitations from our broker brethren?
I'm getting texts from brokers. I don't know how to get my
How do
cell
you
phone
get it?
number, but
My family is up in Westchester, same thing.
I'm
The
sure.
properties are going in a day, and they get phone calls and emails and whatever. It's like, how do you know my email?
Well, I will say this, so to what you had said earlier, Greg, if interest rates do indeed come down, yes, that will encourage more buyers, but there should be a little more property too, because that will be some of these sellers
Well,
that
but
have been
that-
letting
They will let go of-
that have to sell to buy something else. They also then
But
that will
that's the
contribute a
inventory
little
dilemma,
bit.
and I keep keep going back to, the reason why people are not putting their stuff on the market is because of that rate problem.
Sure.
And I've got 4.4. I've got 3.9.
Well, that's why you got to find the baby boomers, because they're the ones with the cash.
Yeah.
They're the ones that have kept the economy going because they have all this cash to spend.
Yeah.
They're the ones that don't have mortgages.
Right.
They're the ones thinking about downsizing or whatever.
They are the ones that would pay down more than their monthly to like pay the principal down.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's so easy to
What's that
do.
like?
Even just doing bi-weekly payments, which, I think are a great way. You can easily
Well, if you
shave
can do that, of
7
course.
years or more off your mortgage, 30-year mortgage, just by making that one extra payment a year.
How are you seeing pricing trends shaping up across Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, just in general? I mean, the price is going up, price is staying the same. When you talk to sellers about putting new listings on the market, where are their I talk to sellers, they still want hundreds of thousands of dollars more than their property is worth.
Yes.
We all know that, age-old problem. How do you see that trend?
Well, so it's so interesting because just New York in general, Manhattan, Brooklyn, any borough is very different from my friends who are realtors in New Jersey. It's a thing. It's a point of pride. They get 30, 40 offers, and they usually go anywhere from 100,000 to even $1 million over their asking price. I think that's poor pricing. I'm not throwing shade on New Jersey, but that's not the New York City
it's
model.
It's happening in Westchester as well.
I don't understand that. Just price a little higher, deal with less offers. But here in New York, we are seeing that prices are kind of staying the same, but sellers are expecting buyers to make offers. And there becomes the limit at which someone is going to lob out an offer. Some of my listings, I've had someone just come in with something that 2-bedroom in the financial district. We priced it perhaps a little optimistically at 1.7. Should probably be closer to 1.55, 1.5. And they're throwing in these ridiculous lowball offers that we're countering politely because you can't gone are the days of coldly saying I'm sorry, that's far too low for us to count. I'll give you the token. I like to call it the token FU counter of like 10 to 15,000 or a little bit off and kind of we're acknowledging. Let's keep the conversation.
The FU counter.
So those people are out there, and then I asked the broker, I'm like, so. Is your customer also putting in a number of offers, or is it lots of offers? So there are people who are out there kind of spraying the lowball offers.
Yes, they are.
Again, that's not to say that our listing isn't a teeny bit overpriced.
I had a direct buyer, emailing me over the weekend, negotiating with me on how flexible is the seller. I'm not working with a broker. Can I at least discount 3%?
Yes,
the
right.
typical whatever.
Because you're not doing anything when you take on 2 jobs.
Correct. And I said to him, listen, why don't we see the apartment first?
Yeah, right. This is all pre-visit, right? Very premature. Yes.
Let's see the apartment first. Let's understand what we're dealing with.
This doesn't mean that this might not be your buyer for all of this obnoxiousness, right? Okay.
And he loved it.
Okay.
So
now we're talking. Now we're cooking with gas.
Well, I haven't heard from him yet, but he loved it. So, but he, negotiating before he even walked in the door, and I'm like,
there's a lot of that.
There's a lot of that, and it seems like there's more of that these days than there has been. I mean, in the
past.
past.
You talk about picking and choosing numbers, right? Like us economists are just evil that way. But it works the same way in your job. You can look at statistics and say, look, contract signs in Manhattan the last 2 weeks have been weak.
Sure.
Any way you look at it, it's been weak.
Which
year
you
over
expect
year.
for August. You do
No,
expect
but year
that.
over year even, where you're talking about the same seasonal patterns, weaker than last year, which was not a great year.
No.
So you can point that out. I think that some people read about these stories and then they say, all right, I have all the leverage. I'm going to squeeze the seller.
Exactly right.
And the seller's like, well, I'm going to squeeze the buyer. And then you guys figure that out. But
because the media has never been a friend to real estate. Never. They love to. I mean, this is back when I was first in the business in 2003, and then we were on this meteoric rise following September 11th after those 4 months that things came down.
I used to yell and scream about the media and real estate.
Oh, it's frothy, it's bubbling, it's on the verge of collapse, which didn't happen until 2008,
and
right? But they were talking about it for years.
Oh my God, I can't go shopping right now for real estate because it's just terrible.
And so that has never stopped in my experience, in real estate now. They are not our friend. The media is not.
Well, because the first thing they ask you is,
the media is not our friend in a lot of things. But,
Yes.
where should people be buying now? Where they want to live.
Exactly.
Is now a good time to buy? If you need a home, yes, now is a great time to buy.
Yes.
Like
it's the consultant answer. It depends.
Like I'm going to sit there and go,
true,
you should stay the heck away from this area.
Right.
So like we don't sell anything there. And all the listings we have there, fire us because we say, I mean, this isn't.
But that's
a thing you
asinine.
can
It's different
pinpoint.
things.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's also gone data
Can I
crazy.
say asinine?
Sure. I think that's another thing. We, as a country, we've become so obsessed with data.
Yes.
every aspect, well, even sports, they've ruined it because there's too many metrics, even for
Everyone's
economists.
the 5-minute expert because of the data.
And
data
that's the
is
thing.
good, but the data can be very
Well, that gets back to what I was saying earlier about statistics. Like, I'll
Lies,
and
damn
all
lies
with
and
full
statistics.
respect. No, you can slice and dice the data any way you want to support a particular point of view.
Well,
so
you can.
there is that.
But people hang their hat on
Correct.
data, and sometimes way too much. But let me ask you, though, are buyers coming to the market these days pre-fall season?
Yes.
A little more motivated than they've been the last year. 2024 was horrible. Early 25 was I agree with you what you said before. Going into the end of this year, I think it's going to be a little busier.
Yes.
I hope. But do you find the buyers, I'm finding them a little more motivated, but I'm also still finding them, I'm answering the question, but I want your opinion as well. I'm also finding them still hesitant to pull the trigger.
There's still a lot of wait and see, and that can be attributed to what's going on in the world. So, traditionally, it's like we forget every 4 years, it's an election year. There's going to be a lot of uncertainty and slow moving because, markets are volatile, both the stock and the real estate market, because of the uncertainty. I used to have clients and customers ask me, Tracy, what's going to happen if Harris got elected? What's going to happen if Trump got elected? My answer was the same. It doesn't matter which one. It is that someone gets elected, and then the markets know, and then there can be certainty. And we saw this uptick in activity in December, which is, and this is, and I'm sorry if you've talked about this before in other shows, but that is why, we came into this, that we know who our president is. It is what it is. But then with the tariffs, the trade wars, the job losses, all of that, there's been more uncertainty introduced that we are not expecting. And that is what has led to people staying in this wait and see mode. And then now locally here in New York City, sorry, I'm on my rant for just a second. I had several, both sellers and buyers, ask me, including people who did sign some nice contracts over the summer. Are people, with what happened with the Democratic primaries, they're like, oh my goodness, is this, are people coming to you? Are they renegotiating? Are they pulling their contracts? Because there is a lot more uncertainty now, given the question mark of our always stellar leadership here. Bring back Bloomberg. That has definitely contributed to the continued wait and see in a year, post-election year, that traditionally should have been stronger, busier, more active, less hesitancy.
Correct. Now, so from a corporate perspective, you see a lot more than Tracy and I do, individually. You see it from a whole
the broader,
company,
big picture.
Broader picture. So what are you seeing as far as more motivated buyers, more deals happening, or is it kind of still...
It's still sluggish. The one area that seems to really catch fire at times is the luxury market, because a lot of those are
less
rare
impacted by the mortgage rates.
It's cash.
It's all cash.
It's about opportunity.
Yes.
As much as you read about, we have too many of these luxury skyscrapers. Apparently, we don't have enough of them. Because
I don't know where those buyers are, though. Those are the $22.5 million deal just inked at 111 West 57th. That's not my customer. I wish it were.
Well, look at what Nikki Field just did, $40+ million on a penthouse.
Good for her.
Yeah,
Where?
Love her.
I know, she's great.
I can't remember downtown.
Okay.
Somewhere downtown. I don't remember the building.
Who thought you'd see prices like that downtown?
Yes.
Well, $40 million for a penthouse. It's like, okay, I'd buy an island for $40 million and float on my boat.
Take me with you.
Obviously, the rates affect the under $2 million more than anything else.
More, absolutely.
You can't trail it exactly because these people get approved, then they start looking, and it takes time. But they're a lot more interest rate sensitive.
Yes.
But the thing that New York always has going for it is, remember, stocks, the prior 2 years returned over 20% each year. The Dow, hit a record at the end of last week. The bonuses are expected to be up. They were
up this past year.
It was a record.
Good Wall Street
it was
year.
a record over $50 billion. Think about that, and that's cash. A lot of people think, that's options. That is cash.
No, that's cash.
They in their hands, hopefully buying real estate with it. So I think with the uncertainties that go on here about leadership and policy and things, maybe changing the property tax system, there's always this stuff hanging over. Is the city can be run better? Which we all would say absolutely.
After DeBozo, the bar was still low, was lying on the ground. So there's that. But
I just got that.
The MTA has issues and stuff like that. So it's, I think, but with all that, you look over decades and you see a resiliency in the history of the city and a desire to be here. And companies, this is in the 70s and 80s.
Sure.
Companies are not leaving.
That's true.
In fact, we have tech companies who want to buy more space here.
I mean, a lot of them have gone to Miami. Let's we've got BlackRock, Blackstone, the whole,
No, but they're still here.
New York South, yes.
It's not like they've abandoned here.
It's branches, yes.
Right.
Agree.
And I think with the city, the offering the broader base of jobs. It's not just all about Wall Street anymore.
No.
Sure.
No.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, so we talked about sellers. What strategies should what strategies now should sellers use to kind of stand out in a crowded or uncertain market? Because we talk about the hesitation of sellers
Sure.
wanting to put stuff on the market because of interest rates, because of pricing and whatever. What strategies are they thinking about, or that we as
Yeah,
real
I was going to
estate
say that are we
agents
encouraging and
are
coaching them, right?
Correct. Right.
Well, that is the $10 million question,
Yes,
isn't it,
it
Vince?
is.
I
I have to talk to somebody in a day or two, and I'm thinking, what am I going to say?
I know, right? No, this is the thing, that always pricing is more of an art than a science,
Correct.
right? And sometimes I've been guilty of coming in and being so enthusiastic about a particular property, loving it myself, seeing myself living there, and I might have been a little over optimistic in my pricing.
Right. Well, yeah.
I try to be eternally optimistic with the healthy injection of realism. I do think that it does come down to pricing. I mean that answer
Always.
has not changed over the years. Right?
I learned that
Be
22
smart
years
and
ago from
strategic.
my first
Yes,
sales manager.
Yes, you can do
Always
marketing, you can do
price
whatever.
right.
Location. But at the end of the day, it's not. It is the right price is going to. You can't underprice. The market will not let you. This intelligent, very sensitive market with. Have you guys read Freakonomics?
Yes, I'm familiar with those books.
I figured you had. So I love it. Super
Yes.
Freakonomics, the follow-up, not quite as good as most sequels are not. But the first one, I'm intelligent, I'm not intellectual. That book made me feel like an intellectual. I loved it. And there was the second chapter, I think, how real estate agents
get
are like
more
the
for
Ku
their-
Klux Klan. They're like the Ku Klux Klan because they operate on fear and information arbitrage.
No, but
that is no longer
you
our
also
advantage.
get more for when you sell your home than when you sell someone else.
So
That
we
was
hold it
another
on that,
chapter
yes,
in
that the
that book.
average real estate agent's personal home stays in the market a lot longer. But my whole point is that it used to be, yes, we had a certain advantage. Now with StreetEasy, with all of the market reports, the data, the internet, everything else is, as we were saying earlier, people are the 5-minute experts because they're reading everything. We no longer have necessarily that advantage. Now that doesn't mean that most of us, the good ones of us, could be easily replaced by AI or
Never,
just going
never.
our own way, right? But I'm just saying that
Ray,
now there's a
get
lot
AI
more.
to host a podcast. Okay?
There's a lot more information. ChatGPT gives a lot of really good advice. I'm just going to say, like, it is becoming more and more human-like.
Does,
It's
but I don't
crazy.
like the thought that it's going to replace.
Of course not. No, but that is getting back to my rather
I
long-winded
get-
point now,
I get
that
it.
there is no substitute for us, but there is a lot more information out there. And so how you can prove your value add to an agent, as an agent to your clients, is by encouraging your sellers to price right and to do your homework, to talk to your fellow agents, to really kind of try to understand some of the things that are off the market. A very interesting thing that it's Market Proof has been around forever, but they are doing a promo with Douglas Elliman. And I understood that they now have
Kale?
Kale. That they have information on the shadow listings and the new development, especially, which is so interesting. So you can actually really see how much inventory there is, not just what's out there with a lot of the information. So that's going to be very useful in pricing and understanding inventory
Kale
and
is
things
great,
like that too.
and you're
He is.
so right. It always comes down to pricing correctly.
Yes.
Question
Nothing new here.
out of the blue. So, and I don't have an answer for this
Okay,
other
hit
than
me.
well, I will tell you my answer later.
Yes.
But are we in a?
You
buyer's
always have an
market?
answer, Vince.
Are we in a buyer's market or a seller's market?
Oh, it's so interesting. So Phil Horrigan. I participate on his Love, of course. I participate on his.
He was a regular on the show for many years.
Maybe what is it? Every like 2 or 3 months we do this. Great Minds Real Estate Forum on Zoom, and he always asks us to give a number of a buyer's or seller's market. 1 being a seller's market, 10 being a buyer's market, and we have all, I would say, pretty consistently for the past 2 years landed around a 5.5.
Mm-hmm.
In empirically, in my real life experience, I still think it is more of a buyer's market because you can negotiate, and that for people who are able to come off that uncertainty, wait and see perch and actually buy, people are having to sell. But with the lack of inventory, sellers have a little bit of a control. So it is probably about that 5.5.
What do you think?
Well, we look at the month's supply of homes. This
Okay,
is something
I guess.
that National Association of Realtors uses for
Give us
existing
the
homes.
economist answer, please, Greg.
And Census does for new home sales. And we, in New York, especially in Manhattan, you expect a little higher. So basically the way it works is if you have 100 homes for sale, the next logical question would be like, is that a lot? Like, how do you measure
Sure,
if that's a
relative
lot?
to- yeah.
So you look at the pace of sales. So let's say you're selling 10 a month. That's a 10-month supply. That's high. That's a buyer's market.
Okay.
Nationally, they use 5 months as like a cutoff point.
Okay.
But here in Manhattan, we go a little bit higher than that. So it's sitting about 6.5.
Okay.
So it's neutral. I'd say it's neutral.
Sure.
And it's
That's
a,
that 5.5.
right. There's a big difference between studio co-ops and luxury
course.
condos.
Sure.
And the higher the price point, the higher the levels of inventory you get, those things just take longer to sell. And I think that's why we do inventory reports that are broken down by ownership type,
Sure.
And price, because that's the best way to really look at it. And, inventory is the most pure fact you have. Shadow inventory is always, anybody would sell their house for someone knocked on
Fair
it
enough.
with
To
a
make
sack
me
of
sell
cash.
price. Yeah, absolutely.
But that is, average prices can be skewed by certain things, but what's on the market is what's on the market. Everybody can see it now, like you said, Tracy, with all these websites. It is what it is. And it's a good leading indicator, because that tells us as that inventory level, that month supply gets higher, you expect prices are going to start to come down.
Sure.
There's more negotiability. It's as good a leading indicator. Closed sales are a lagging indicator because they're negotiated months before they close.
Correct.
Contract signs are more real-time or concurrent indicator.
Sure.
It's what's happening now.
If you can get people to reveal the contract price.
No, but it doesn't matter.
Well,
I have this argument with brokers here all the time. Like, Craig, well, what does that matter? I don't know the price. I said, no, you don't. But at that asking price, a buyer
It
was
moved.
interested.
Sure.
They
You
negotiated.
made a deal.
And typically, most deals are recorded are agreed to within 5% of the last asking price or less.
Is that the factor?
Luxury pricing is different. That could be 10%.
Sure.
But
Well,
if
that's
you
a
look
whole
at
different world.
if you look at selling versus last asking price, usually sellers are getting 98%, 90%, because until you get within 5%-ish, there's no negotiation. Most of the time, I would say, maybe that's not always the case, but
That gets back to pricing right out of the gate,
Right.
right?
100%.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right, we have to take another break. One more block left with Greg and Tracy. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
This podcast is supported by the More Network, powered by Brown Harris Stevens. Real estate touches every aspect of our lives, from design and architecture to investing and the economy. Now there's a way to get all your real estate information in one place. The More Network. With more than 20 podcast and webcast series, the Mastery of Real Estate Network is powered by Brown Harris Stevens, one of the country's most distinguished brokerages. Discover advice from notable entrepreneurs, compelling topics, and access to top global real estate experts. Subscribe to their YouTube and Apple podcast channels by visiting getmorenetwork.com.
One last question on the buyer and seller behavior.
Yep.
Are you seeing bidding wars out there? Because a lot of agent friends of mine are saying, oh, I became stuck in a bidding war and whatever. I have not in my world. I'm hearing that some of them do exist.
Sure.
Are they as intense as they have ever been or not? I mean, what's going on? I see more deals lingering
Yes.
than I do having
Same.
more bidding war.
I think it's the same thing as going to a little school in Boston or participating in CrossFit or something. Like you have to talk about it. It's like, oh, the bidding war is so magnificent. No, I've not had that either. Right.
No.
I've heard of it. I have had colleagues that have experienced it. That's not happened with any of my listings. And usually we are back to, the old saw again, where nothing is new under the sun.
No.
Vince. Like, the first offer is often the only or best offer. You better find a way to work with it. That's not always true, but like that is still, I think, more than ever. If you get an offer, treat it as if it's going to be your only offer and negotiate and try to find a way to work with it. I'm not seeing personally a lot of bidding wars. And I hate them. I don't love them.
I don't love them either because it's always very complex. But let me ask you something. So when buyers put an offer in, and I've seen a little bit of this year, and they get accepted,
Yes.
all of a sudden you don't hear from the other side and you're thinking, hello, what's
Right.
happening with our offer?
Right.
And then finally the broker will get back to you and say, my buyer's getting cold feet and they really don't want to pursue or proceed. And I'm like, what happened? Are you seeing any of that?
Maybe they had been putting in offers on more than one property. Because, that is a question actually that I've started asking either the buyer themselves of dealing with them directly
Yeah.
or their agent, which again, it doesn't necessarily change
It's one of
something,
two
but
things.
it's
They're
a factor
putting
for that.
multiple offers out there, and I just had that happen, or they're just saying, I can't justify the price or the
Then they
interest
start
rate
reading
or
all the
whatever.
data and seeing all the media and
or somebody
hysterical
talked them
things.
out of it.
And yeah,
Someone said,
exactly.
you'd be
Or
crazy
somebody
to buy
talked
now.
them out.
Right,
The uncle
exactly.
from California said, what are you buying that for?
Who knows all about the New York City real estate market, right? Finger
all
on the
of it.
pulse. Yes,
What
there's a lot of that.
neighborhoods are showing the most resilience coming into the fall, do you think? I mean, what is it?
Sure.
We still talking Brooklyn? Are we still talking
We are still
Manhattan?
talking Brooklyn. I always am wishing for more listings in Brooklyn. So anyone out
Same
here
here,
listening that
same
would like
here.
my expertise in Brooklyn and downtown for sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, just look at an inventory report and you'll see what's hot and what's not. And you'll see
On
where
the inventory reports, are you seeing Brooklyn is also kind of still leading the way?
Certain those areas, Brooklyn Heights, it's a perpetual problem.
Brooklyn
Sure.
Heights, yeah.
Right? Park Slope has more opportunity. But, the hotter
Williamsburg is getting
neighborhoods
hot.
now are
Yeah.
more and more. It used to just be a handful of neighborhoods in Brownstone, but it's different. You look at Queens, it's similar. The areas that are more suburban-like, a lot of people that fled Manhattan during the pandemic
Right.
didn't leave New York City. They went to the outer boroughs.
Sure.
Which
Which are
kill-
more bucolic and more
which kills
space
me.
and
more space, more open
interesting.
air or whatever.
Right.
But you know what kills me though? I get the whole Brooklyn thing, but I'm old enough to remember friends of mine who grew up in Brooklyn couldn't wait to run
Sure.
out of Brooklyn.
Vince, I don't hold with the kind of newer thing to say that Manhattan is the new B&T. I'm sorry. Manhattan will always be Manhattan. Manhattan will always be New York City. Brooklyn is amazing. I'm not throwing
love
shade,
Brooklyn.
but
I
yes,
love Brooklyn.
of course.
And I totally agree with what you just said. But it's so funny because the same people who ran away
Right.
are finding themselves running back.
Right.
And I also just recently read an article, I think yesterday or the day before, on social media about how hot Astoria in Queens is becoming.
Astoria is lovely. I sold a
is lovely.
multifamily there
It is
last year,
lovely.
and it is actually lovely and fairly easy to commute to.
It's not a bad commute. It is lovely. I love it. It's not a bad commute, but it's a great location.
Because we've heard Long Island City. I'm sorry, we've heard Long Island
Well,
City
Long
for
Island City
Queens,
just
but
kinda,
but I'm just saying. But
takes
like now,
over.
Astoria is having its moment. Absolutely.
It's having its moment. Thank you. Better
People
said.
forget. I was once doing a live thing on NPR about how
Listen to you.
this is a long time ago when I was like this big.
He should do a lot more.
But they, we were making a big deal of the average Manhattan price crossed $1 million versus, and then they started taking calls, and they're like yelling at me. It's like, who cares about $1 million houses? Where am I going to live? And the point I made was, there's 5 boroughs in New York.
Correct.
There's something for everybody. If you want a single family home, Manhattan's probably not the place to look unless you're rich.
Right.
And
Yes, absolutely.
every borough has a flavor to it. Even Riverdale is a place that's become like this suburban
Absolutely.
oasis in the
Oh,
Bronx.
yeah. Good schools there. Absolutely.
all of
Yeah,
that
your
stuff.
last report highlighted that at one point. I remember. Yeah.
well,
We,
and
we
I'm-
love Riverdale. Hi, Sandy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You have given me an opening here, Greg, that I have to take. I'm very sorry. I know we're very sales focused, but it rents.
No, we're going to get there.
Okay,
Go
well,
ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to say to your point, Greg, it is not a right to live in Manhattan or Brooklyn if that's your Manhattan. It is not a right. Yes, exactly what you said. You do not just get to not work and then think that, you should get certain concessions to live wherever you'd like to live. You live where your budget dictates.
I
just want to make
I
that
wouldn't
point.
be that blunt about it. I would say
Well,
that
I am.
many of us.
And that goes against some of the
like-
things that some of the politicians are saying in New York City. That
I
I do
like
not
where
agree
I
with.
live. Would I like to live in a nicer neighborhood with closer to the beach?
Listen.
Yes, but I think people have to
You
make
can take the subway there. You can take a car there.
decision that's best for them for a variety
Yes.
of reasons. Schools, proximity to work, and all of that stuff. That's why this one size fits all mindset that a lot of people have, and reporters seem to have a lot.
Yes.
is not the way to go.
I'm sorry. I moved here when I was 21 after graduating from the University of Florida. Go Gators. Lived in a 2-bedroom railroad apartment, 1 bathroom, 4 to 7 people there at any given time. It was the University of Florida halfway house. If you moved here to New York from Gainesville or Florida or whatever, you stayed with us probably on my couch with my 1 bathroom with no outlet in it. So we had to run an extension cord from the kitchen to use our hair dryers.
Oh my God.
So, I have worked very
Blowing
hard
fuses, can
to
you
have,
imagine?
exactly, of course. I've worked very hard to own the condos that I do in New York City. And, that is something that it takes hard work to get to where you are if you don't come from means, right? That is not just a right or a privilege to live anywhere in New York City, in any borough in New York. I should actually take the step back
It's
to
not.
say.
So speaking of luxury or
Yes.
owning
Yes.
whatever, how's the luxury market doing? But we've all alluded to it that the cash deals are kind of, inflation safe or not
Sure.
worried about interest rates or whatever. They've got the cash. They want to buy $40 million penthouse.
Amazing.
20-something million I saw the other day. How is that market doing?
I mean,
Ultra luxury.
ultra luxury is actually still performing, I would say. And again, Greg, I defer to you with the
And
numbers
why?
and the
Tell
data.
me why.
But it actually does still kind of blow my mind that there are that many people who would be cash at this
Right.
point. I mean, some of them are financing, but it's not that the rates are so low that it's an
there's
advantage.
two things that have helped it. One is the performance of Wall Street.
Yes.
When you have back-to-back 20% 100% plus gains, and for the people that work on Wall Street, and the
Record
bonus,
bonuses, yeah.
all that cash around. And we don't have the same level of foreign purchasing, but
Correct.
No.
the dollar just had its worst half of a year in 50 years. The dollar it's stabilized a little bit now,
Right.
but a weaker dollar does make it a lot more affordable.
Encouraging, yeah.
So I think those have helped. Plus, again, you think like, that shouldn't be a concern anyone has. Like, are we building enough housing for rich people? But it appears that we're not, because these luxury developments go up are getting gobbled up. Every time you
It's
hear
astounding,
another
isn't
one
it?
go,
It's
no one's going to pay that price per square
Right.
foot to live there. And then you
Then
start
Ken
seeing...
Griffiths just sweeps it.
Right, and then you start to see downtown resales going for $50 million. It's like, no, I guess they are going to pay that.
When I first started new development with Mr. Kligerman, it was like, people came to the development because they wanted to live Upper East Side, Upper West Side,
Sure.
Hell's Kitchen. They wanted to live in that neighborhood. Didn't care. Now, the last couple of developments I've sold, people coming from everywhere
Sure.
to live in a building that they like, the apartment that they like, because now
The amenities that they like.
the amenity. Because now with all the car services, with the additional train lines on the east side, whatever, people can go all over the place. So they're not just neighborhood dependent anymore.
Sure.
They're looking at price. They're looking at glitz. They're looking at, beautiful apartments that they like. Tell me what's doing better as we get close to close here. Co-ops, condos, townhouses in this particular market throughout 2025. That's been kind of sluggish, but not so terrible. Going into the fall or end of year, what's performing better? Co-op, condo, townhouse?
I'm
Or all
seeing-
of the above?
Well, again, this actually depends on the neighborhood and the borough. I think townhouses in Brooklyn are still probably very, very strong. Some townhouses uptown too here in Manhattan. But I still think that condos over co-ops, although co-ops are still close to 70% of the available inventory, even with most new buildings coming up as condos. It's still just because it is such a broader buyer pool.
Right.
You can buy it in LLC, a trust, foreign buyer, et cetera.
You
It
can
doesn't
rent
matter.
from day one. You don't have to
Exactly
move into
right.
it. So the
So again-
flexibility of subleasing is great. Townhouses, though, after COVID, made a big kind of comeback because
Yes.
everybody wanted
Their own space,
their own space, their outdoor space. God forbid we had another pandemic and you couldn't, do whatever.
Sure.
And a lock in place or whatever it was called. Go to the roof, have your own outdoor
Shelter
space.
in place.
Shelter in place. Thank you.
I'm glad you've forgotten that term.
I don't ever want to go there again.
know, right?
But anyway, but they had their own private
Sure.
space. So I see a little bit of that activity.
Well, I'll tell you what.
still
I'll tell you what.
happening
Nobody.
pretty
I'm gonna say nobody wants. The biggest challenge right now are unrenovated co-ops.
Correct.
And
Yes.
people always ask me, what year is it? We back to 2015,
Oh, yeah,
2000.
What do you say?
Well, that's not-
But you don't price that way. It's like people say like this last sold 10 years ago. How much has the market gone up since then? I go, there's no such thing as the market.
Right.
You don't price things that way. It's not a cost of living adjustment.
Which is not a standardized thing. You can't say, the
Right.
market is up 3.5% right now from what it was in 2015.
No, I can say the median price or the average price is up,
Sure.
but what does that mean to that
a
apartment?
specific property, right?
And, people we don't see the level of new construction of condos that we saw 20 years ago. You think of
Right.
the massive, back in the 421A
that crazy
days,
pipeline,
when everything was
yeah.
going up.
There
Yeah.
was the tax abatements.
But that has produced a lot of resale apartments and kind of with amazing amenities. And I think people, they look at how hard it is to do the work, how much more expensive it is to do the work in a co-op and inconvenient. You only do it these times.
Sure.
I think they're looking to say, I'll pay up to get the unit that's ready to move
Absolutely.
in and I'll get it with amenities. Co-ops are the value play because all things being equal, they're going to be a little bit cheaper because of the way co-ops are structured, the rules they have,
I
the
think still
underlying
20 to
mortgage.
25% less
They
expensive
are,
than
but
the
I agree
equivalent
with
condo.
what you're saying about the hesitation to want to redo or redecorate or construct because the construction industry here, the renovation industry here, very long timeline. Things have gotten very, very expensive.
Well, labor costs have gone up, material costs have gone up.
There's still the
and
shortage of
labor.
supplies. I mean, we're all going back to COVID, as you know.
100%. So
Yeah,
people are like, hey,
absolutely.
you know what? I don't have another 6 months to wait to do whatever. I want to move in right now.
Sure.
Brand new.
Pay a
No one ever
premium for
lived
that.
there. It's
Absolutely.
perfect. You like the finishes? You like what you see? Move right in. Okay.
There are some people who will renovate new construction, which I've never, as a two-time
please,
new
I've-
condo
I've
construction,
seen
I
it.
don't understand that. But yes,
Listen,
there are
I
those
sold
people.
a whole brand new building a bunch of years
When
ago.
you got that kind of money, you get it the way you want it.
Yeah, sure. Fair enough.
Well, I sold this brand new building in Hell's Kitchen many years ago. You know the building I work in all the time,
505,
505.
yeah.
And one of the penthouse buyers never moved in. He called me right after he closed and said, can you tell me, he comes from another place, can you tell me what the renovation policies are? And I said, what are you looking at?
For new condo construction?
brand new building. What are you looking to renovate? Oh, he says, I need to renovate the entire apartment.
Why
Anyway,
did he buy
long
it?
story short,
Amazing.
he crashed the entire apartment, never moved in, crashed the whole thing. I had to manage it because I was here in New York. He was in
You're a
South
good
America,
man.
whatever. And what he did to it was beyond. It's the only apartment in that building that looks completely different.
Wow.
Like it belongs somewhere else. It's unbelievable.
Was it tasteful, though? Was it nicely done?
Oh, my God. Then he had his decorator come in and furnish
Did he
it.
get the premium? Did he recoup whatever investment he put into it?
I sold it 11 or 12 years later. Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
nice. Well done, because he
I
had you
did
as he had you as his agent,
because
Vince.
I was his
The
agent.
Vince factor.
There it is, the Vince factor. Exactly.
He
Think
made,
Vince.
he made his money back and more. But,
I'm so
but this
glad.
guy, he's got so much of it, he don't really care, but he did really,
It's a
really
good
well.
client to have.
But it looked beautiful. And not only that, we sold the apartment completely furnished with
You would
his
have
stuff.
to, right? Yeah, sure. He did
Because
the
the buyer
look.
who walked in, first buyer walked in and said,
Yes, please.
yes, please. And
That's so
what'd you
nice.
say? It comes with all the furniture?
I love listings like that.
I do too.
Right.
I need more than please.
Yes, yes, please.
All right, before we leave, predictions. Where are we going at the end of between now and the end of the year? What is your Tracy Hammersley prediction on the market right now into the end of the year?
I am very
Are we
optimistic.
celebrate Christmas optimistically or no?
Yes, we absolutely
And
are, Vince. It's
Hanukkah.
going to be all the holidays. It's going to be
All the
Kwanzaa.
holidays.
It's going to be a
Kwanzaa.
very, very strong fall. Busy, active, more buyers in the market, more properties on the market. I think it's going to be strong and active for all of us.
Okay.
God willing.
Mr. Heim.
I'm not as optimistic, surprised an economist, but I think things look like they're starting to move in the right direction for us in terms of the odds of mortgage rates going down.
This is Greg being optimistic.
But I don't think it's going to change that quickly. Next week is September. So the idea that we're going to go like this and fall's going to go gangbusters,
Yeah.
I'm not buying it just yet. I think,
Let's meet back in 2 months, Greg. Right here, same time, same place.
Same time, same place.
all right, if you insist.
Well, listen, but I
don't want to be right, by the way.
What was that song? I don't want to be right, but I don't want to be wrong. Or what was that? You know, Mr.
You're
Song.
making this stuff up, Vince.
No, there's lyrics. Am I right? I think there's a song that says, I don't want to be right, but I don't want to be wrong.
Nobody's heard of
I
this
can't
alleged
sing.
song.
I don't know it, but I'm going to Google it after this show. I'll let you know.
Absolutely. All right, with that, we're coming right back with my final thoughts for the week. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. Listening to Vince Rocco, you know the right partner makes all the difference. At Roadway, we deliver an experience your clients will love. For specialized services and white glove care, choose Roadway. Want to learn more? Email me at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
Okay, everybody, we are back with my final thoughts. As we head into the fall, one thing is clear. The New York City real estate market is full of both challenges and opportunities. Buyers are navigating affordability and interest rate pressures. Sellers are figuring out how to stand out. And neighborhoods across the city are showing very different levels of resilience. The fall season has always been about renewed energy and fresh momentum. And while this year's market may not look like years past, it's still New York. It's dynamic, it's competitive, and full of surprises. Whether you're a buyer, seller, or just a market watcher, the key this season is to stay informed, stay flexible, and be ready to move when the right opportunity presents itself. So thanks for tuning in to this New York City market update today. And as always, we'll keep tracking the shifts and the trends so you can stay one step ahead of everybody. And that's our broadcast for today. Thanks to my guests for being here on set with me. You can follow me on Facebook, on Threads, Instagram, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, Substack, or TikTok at Vince Rocco. And Mark Cuban says, it doesn't matter how many times you fail, you only have to be right one time. One time. And from all of us here at Talking New York Real Estate and the More Network, to all of you all around the world, thanks for spending a part of your day with us. I am grateful. Keep thinking the good thoughts, and I will see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.